Hey, it's Viviana and welcome back. Today though, we have a little bit of a different video. We are working with alternative process photography, in particular, transfer lifts. And I took 2 courses of this back in college. I absolutely loved it because honestly, there's so much you can do with alternative process, different projects. It's crazy. But in this case, I am working only with transfer lifts. And I will list down below all of the materials that you will need. To start off with though, the inkjet printer is very, very important. I struggle a lot with this one in particular, but I bought it because of the size. Because at that time, I lived in a tiny studio, so I couldn't really afford the space for anything bigger, and it honestly gives me a headache each time I have to use it. But in particular, when I'm using transfer film, and the brand that I'm using is Das, and I can't remember where I bought it, but I will write it down below here. So, yes. Now, when you are working with this transfer film, it's really, really important that you print onto the luster side, not the glossy, because if you print onto the glossy, literally the ink is just gonna slide off completely. And this is kind of expensive, so you don't want to ruin too many pages. I'm talking from experience because honestly, I did that a lot. And when you finally have the photo you want to work with, it's very, very important that you invert it. So in my case, since I only shoot film, I had to scan the negative. Then I like to work on it a little bit on Photoshop, which the only 2 things I do is adjust the contrast, and I also invert it. Very, very important. And when I'm bring out the app onto my phone, since I'm working with only black and white photos, I make sure that I'm printing it on black and white, not color. So we finally got the first part out of the way. These look amazing, and I'm so happy. The last time I did this was during the pandemic, so it's been many, many years. And this is a portrait I took of my friend Brenda in Asilomar. And it is a double exposure. And I will admit, I did not do this on purpose. I did not. You know how that works. Little great and amazing mistakes. And I will write down below my favorite type of watercolor paper that I used for this project. Now you want to cover the areas that you want the ink to appear. I like to do like extra amount of the liquid on the edges, just so for when I press, I get the ink on the edges, or where there's the excess of gel to really be pushed off. And this is already drying really quick, so I'm going to try to do this quickly. Okay, I should actually put more. I'm doing more of a rectangle than a square. Okay, this is the first one, so if it doesn't come out that great, I won't hate myself too much. Okay. Now, I'll press lightly, not too hard, because it's so delicate. It's so, so delicate. A spoon helps a lot. I'm trying to be super careful where the face is, because I want that to actually transfer nicely. I don't care much of the edges. If that blurs out, I'll put the weight that I want or the pressure that's needed. I don't mind. Part of her, I can tell, didn't transfer that well. That's where I put a lot of the gel. And it looks like the waves are kind of roughed out, but I think what I care the most is her face. Because if her face isn't intact, then the whole photograph is pretty much ruined because it's a double exposure. There's already so much going on. You need that one thing to connect to, and that's her. And so let's see. I'm going to lift this, but you know what? Let me show you how it looks while I lift it. I agree, this is a hot mess, you guys. I definitely put on way too much gel. That's why it looks this bad. And you know what? But it's a warm-up. I'm glad. This really brought me flashbacks of how it used to be working with this. So yeah, let's keep at it. On to the second try. And the big reason of why I love this technique so much is that you have so many different possibilities of creating different work from the same photo. It will never be identical, it will never be perfect, and how boring if so. That's not why I do this. I do not want it to be perfect. And I'm using the spoon as a reference just so I know which areas I want to focus on when I'm putting the gel. In this case, this photo, pretty much half of the photo, there's nothing interesting. It's literally just the sky, and it was an overcast day, so there's not even interesting clouds. So yeah, I'm just gonna focus on the bottom half of that photo. And when I make these, I really like to make them kind of like the vibes. I want it very like haunting. I want it interesting, deep, dark. I'm really drawn to that. So when I add excess gel, I can really add a lot of pressure to the ink, and I feel like that really gives me what I'm looking for, which is that darkness, that edge to the photo. And I love that you can manipulate something so easy like that. And also, there are areas that I want to be gentle with. For, in this case, Brenda's face, I want it to be intact and not manipulated, so I add very light pressure to that. This is very sensitive, and it's easy to damage or ruin, I guess, depending on what it is that you're trying to give out to the viewer. And I just love that. This is never boring. It's always so much fun, and there's just endless things you can do with this. I love it so. And I really hope you try it out. And with the spoon, what I really love to do is that sometimes with the pressure I do with my fingers, it's not enough. So when I'm lifting the transfer film, you will see that there are certain areas that I notice that weren't transferred completely, and I do want them to transfer. I will add more pressure with the spoon, and that is really a great tool. Also, if it didn't transfer and you want to add more gel to that section, you can. Just be very careful that you don't add too much. I've noticed that I've done that in the past, and it actually sometimes does work. Not always though, so be careful. And oh man, I'm so happy to share this with you guys. I love it. I can't believe it. We got it on the second try. I was definitely prepared for 10 attempts and still struggling, and here we are. I am thrilled. I can't believe it. Also, sorry, I am a very, I don't want to say negative person, but I'm always thinking of the worst case scenario of absolutely everything in life, yet I always hope for the best. So it's a weird combination, but it works. And I'm happy it turned out because I was really hoping it would. But I was prepared to struggle a little along the way. I do struggle a lot when creating art. But yeah, I love it. I think it turned out amazing. I'm really looking forward to making some more. I have a project that I am really pumped to do now because I'm feeling pretty confident. And it's just so weird how alternative process photography comes back into my life at different stages and at just random times. I'm never really expecting it. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. It has more to do with my life as a photographer and my personal life. So if you're not interested and you already learned and saw what you wanted, then I'm so happy that you learned something and that it was helpful in some way, or that it motivated you to create some different art. But if you want to stay for a little while, then I welcome you just to listen to me chat for a bit. And I was born and raised in California in Big Sur, but I've lived many, many years in Mexico, and that's where I live now. I am Mexican American. My parents both are Mexican, and I've been incredibly lucky that I have been able to experience my own culture and live it, and that's awesome. But I did grow up many, many years in California when I wasn't in my culture. So I'm really grateful for my parents that they brought me back here and I got to live my Mexican culture. But so there was a time right after when I graduated college in Monterey Bay that my dream was to move back to Mexico and work on just my photography. So I built my darkroom at my mother's home and I worked at an art gallery, which was awesome. I was very, very new to it, and which was so different for me because I had worked in hospitality since I was 18. So it was very, very different, but I loved it. It was really cool. But I hit a moment where I had to plan for the future, and we decided that it would be best to move back to California, work a lot, and save up our money to build our future home in Mexico. And guess what? I'm in that home right now, and my darkroom is just outside. My husband has his music studio outside too, and he's just enjoying life, teaching children how to play the drums, and he's amazing at it. And I'm working on my photography. So I am thrilled, but there was a time though that I honestly didn't even think I would have access to a darkroom or work in the darkroom, and I didn't think it would be any time near at all. And that had to do that with when I moved back to California. I wanted to retake some courses, photography courses at the community college I had graduated from. But I had taken all of the courses, all of the classes, and they do not let you retake classes if you pass them. So, no darkroom for me, because there are very, very few darkrooms in my area, and the few that there were available, I couldn't afford them, and I could barely afford the materials, much less renting a space. So, that sucked. But I just worked a lot, and then I noticed one semester that one of the courses were actually, the title was different and it was numbered differently. So technically it was a different course, and I was allowed to retake that class, and it gave me access to a darkroom, which was amazing. I was making art again. But then the pandemic happened, and then I no longer had access to a darkroom. So alternative process came back into my life, and I had so much fun creating new work. And from home, that's also the time when I barely started sharing some of my work on social media. Never did I imagine years later that I would be recording a video on just that, sharing it on YouTube with you guys in my future home in Mexico, and I'm a full-time artist. So thank you for letting me just share that with you guys. I feel like with social media, I'm never really that open or being able to talk so much at such length. So I really do appreciate if you guys are still here just hearing me chat about my life. And ultimately what I want to say is that I know how it feels when you feel like you just can't, or you're not allowed, or you feel limited to work on something that liberates you and makes you express yourself, and you just can't. It can be so many different reasons, and sometimes it just happens, and it's really special when you're able to create art. And trust me, I'm always grateful that I am able to at that moment, because there were times that I wasn't able to. So thank you again, and I will see you next time, maybe with more alternative process, maybe with darkroom photography. We'll see. There is so much we can do, and it's so much fun. So I hope you try this out. Also, you don't need to be a film photographer for this. You can do this with your digital photographs, because you just skip the part of scanning your negatives. There's no negative. So yeah, have some fun, and that's the main purpose, right? At least it is with me sharing this with you guys. I just want you guys to enjoy this with me. So now I will say goodbye. Take care. Bye.